It's finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Coming up, some Triple Crown talk, including potential changes at Belmont Park. But first, the Horseracing Integrity Act is back. It was reintroduced this week by a couple of congressmen, and this is the act that would provide uniform oversight for horse racing. Ray, let's start with the changes that are in this iteration of the bill.
The bill that was previously introduced and expired at the end of the last Congress was only for thoroughbred racing. The new Horse Racing Integrity Act would cover not just thoroughbred racing, but also harness racing and quarter horse racing. The other major change, and Congressman Andy Barr, who co-sponsored it with Paulick of New York, called it the Frank Stronach Amendment. No race day medication would be permitted under this new legislation. I think there's a phasing out of race day medication, and that means no Lasix. So that's a controversial addition to this bill.
Yeah, and again, the oversight would be provided by the United States Anti-Doping Agency, which is not a government agency, a non-governmental private institution that oversees doping and drug issues in other sports like the Olympics. But my question on those two stipulations, the umbrella of all racing and Lasix, no race day medication, wouldn't that make it harder for the bill to pass? I mean, considering horsemen are against it in the first place?
Yeah, it does not have a consensus among thoroughbred people. You have the Jockey Club, which strongly supports the bill. I think the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association supports the bill. But the HBPA and the THA have spoken out against it. I think the hope is with this bill encompassing all breeds that you might get the American Quarter Horse Association, which has a fairly strong voice in Washington, D.C. You might get them involved in supporting the bill, and possibly the United States Trotting Association. The AQHA is strong in the Southwest. The USTA might be stronger in the Midwest and Northeast. So getting them involved could help pass this bill.
So what do you think the percentage chance is that it will actually pass?
All right, well, so the previous bill, there's a group that actually scores these bills and says, here's the chance of passage. I think the previous bill had 5% or less chance of passage. This one is probably a little stronger because of the possibility of getting the AQHA behind it, but I still think we're under 10% chance.
Well, the way we're going right now with Congress, and it's not looking good that anything's going to get passed.
That's right. Yeah, they don't have a real high approval rating.
All right, let's talk some Triple Crown.
Cloud Computing draws alongside. They come to the finish together. Noses apart. Cloud Computing has defeated Classic Empire and the Preakness.
So there you have the result of the Preakness, Cloud Computing over Classic Empire, which leads me to my handicapping tip of the week, and that is that no horse is going to win 2 legs of the Triple Crown this year. It certainly appears that Always Dreaming and Cloud Computing will not be competing in the Belmont Stakes. But if you look back through history, it's not that unusual in a year when you don't have a horse that wins both legs that the 2 individual winners don't show up for the Belmont. It's not that rare.
Yeah, just since 2000, there's been 4 previous instances. This would be the 5th time that the winners of the Kentucky Derby and Preakness weren't there. Most recently, it was I'll Have Another, who was expected to go for the Triple Crown after winning the Derby and Preakness, but was injured the day before the race and retired. So you hate to see the Derby winner, the Preakness winner not there, but it is a tough grind for these horses.
Yeah, so you also like to have the chance at a Triple Crown. That's not going to happen this year. And you're not going to have the rivalry renewed between the Derby and the Preakness winner.
Right.
However, in those years when they don't show up for the Belmont Stakes is still a pretty good race, pretty good handicapping, and the undercard has become fantastic. So while the crowds will be smaller, which is okay with me, and the mainstream attention will dwindle this year, from the insider's perspective of a racing fan, I mean, it's still going to be a great day.
Yeah, it will. And right now, there's a couple of Warriors that are tough horses. Classic Empire he's headed there. I thought he ran big in the Derby. He ran huge, just losing in the Preakness. He's a tough horse. Looking at Lee, it's going to be a good race.
And on the undercard, we'll have horses like Songbird showing up. So
That's right.
You can't complain about that. After the Preakness was over, I immediately tweeted out that I thought Irish Warcry was going to win the Belmont. You know, he beat Cloud Computing previously, and he was kind of a toss in the Derby. And I'm glad to hear that their connections are actually thinking about going to the Belmont. Now, one of the issues that's also been talked about this week, Ray, and you've taken some flack for, is potential changes coming to Belmont Park, a renovation that could include downsizing the racetrack from 1.5 miles to something smaller. And that's where you've kind of taken some flack. So before we get to that, where do we stand in the process of actually renovating Belmont?
It looks like that the New York Racing Association is going to be reprivatized, which means Governor Cuomo won't have his hands all over it the way he has the last several years. And that allows NYRA to do the things that they need to do to make their facilities better, specifically Belmont Park. It needs to be renovated. And, you know, from my understanding, they do have plans to renovate the track, making it a more modern facility, I think downsizing the facility. I hope they also downsize the actual racing surface. I think 1.5 mile racetrack is a relic from the past that really no longer fits American racing. So I would like to see them make it 1 mile, 1.125 racetrack, and more in line, more conforming with the rest of American racing.
Boo, boo. No, non-conforming. I like it. I like having a unique track that's that 1.5 mile distance. And yeah, maybe a time gone by when we had longer races, more of them. But I still think we should keep the size of the racetrack. But I do agree about somehow downsizing the grandstand, which if you don't downsize the racetrack and you downsize the grandstand, it could be a little weird. I would be a proponent of sort of changing the structure of the grandstand so that you had more luxury boxes and whatever, and you took, you know, the way you parse it out, it would seem smaller, but it's still the same amount of space. I don't know if that's possible, but I think you could do that and still keep the size of the racetrack.
Yeah, all you have to do is look at modern sports facilities. They've changed so dramatically in recent years. And it's not just luxury boxes. It's better food options. It's just more comfortable surroundings. Belmont Park, it's kind of like going to a museum. And often like a museum, it's empty. So they need to make it a smaller place, make it more compatible to the realities of where we are in racing.
Yeah, I mean, they don't get 50,000 on a Wednesday anymore. So you've got to at least have the grandstand appear to be smaller in terms of using the space for other things, and right. Then that way the grandstand becomes smaller. So, but let us know what you think about this. If they do renovate, would you be a proponent of reducing the size of the racetrack? Let us know on our poll, PaulickReport.com.
Vote yes.
No. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.